Hey, John here. I want to get straight to the point. Have you guys out there watching these videos, have you ever had a situation kind of, let's say you're dealing with something and you constantly, whatever direction you take with it or whatever it is you're trying to accomplish or whatever it is you're trying to avoid, you'll try the same thing over and over and over and over, and it seems like you hit a brick wall constantly over and over again, no matter what you do. Um, you'll hear, man, whatever I do, I can't, it's like I can't figure this out. I can't. It's like I'm constantly going to the same place to let's say it's a house. You're trying to buy a house, and I keep going back, and somebody keeps doing this with me, and I keep going through this struggle, and I keep doing this, and it never feels completely right. It always feels like I'm not talking about those things you know are right, and you have to work. They say nothing worth having is easy to get. It's always going to be hard if it's worth having for everybody to have it. I'm not talking about that thing you know you're supposed to have, but it's a struggle. I'm not talking about those things. I'm talking about the things that something told you in the beginning from day one. It might have been this big, that voice I always talk about, and then you kind of disregard it, or your mom or your dad or your friends tell you, no, just you shouldn't do that. But you're like, no, I know, mom, I know, dad, I know this is something I'm gonna go after it anyway. I'm talking about that thing when you had the voice and you didn't listen to it. And you decided to go after this thing and you battle it, and it's a constant uphill battle, and you lose money and friends and the thing you kind of know you shouldn't have went after, but you wanted it because you were listening to you, um, what you wanted. And so when you did it, it was a constant battle, it was a constant struggle, and it kind of never gets easier, and there's no light at the end of the tunnel and all those kind of things. Did it occur to you that when you're if my analogy would be a puzzle, if you're doing a puzzle and there's that one piece that like it looks pretty good, but in the back of your mind you kind of know it doesn't fit because it didn't just drop into the puzzle. You know what I mean? Like you know it's the wrong piece in the back of your mind, but what do you try to do? Try to shove the piece in there, and then you wasted your time on that piece, and the next piece isn't going to fit, and then the whole thing's going to fall apart. I'm doing the video about that, about those times when you'll say you didn't know, but you really did know from day one, but you kind of disregarded that. But those kind of struggles, those are the ones that we need to pay attention to. Um, what I've tried to do recently is when I get that feeling or that voice, I like to call it the Word, God. But for those of you out there that don't believe in the stuff that I'm talking about, that's fine. That's fine. But we'll call it the voice or the that thing that said, "Nah, I don't want to do this." Well, here's what I have to say about that. It's not going to work. It's never going to work. I don't care if it costs you everything in your life, your relationships, all your money, whatever it is you have, it's not going to work. If you started out your situation with that voice, with that struggle from day one, it's not going to work. So my advice would be when you're going down that road and you get to the left or the right turn, if you know that neither one, that right turn is kind of risky, head down the left turn. And if you're already down the wrong road and you're not sure if it's the right road, my advice, go back to the beginning, go down the right road. The pieces of your life or the things that come easy, I don't mean things that are right are always going to be easy. I'm talking about it should be a natural progression. It should more or less kind of fall into place. You know what I mean? You should feel a total, even if it's like a weird decision, there should be a peace about it. And it should be the kind of peace that where you sleep at night and you know you've done the right thing, even if there's kind of a detrimental outcome somewhere along the line, but you know you did the right thing. That road, that decision, that puzzle piece that fit from day one, that's going to be your secret. That's what God wants for us. He wants us to find the right piece and put it in place where it belongs. And I want to say again, um, You guys, this goes for me too. You're gonna have these times in your life where you feel like, man, I know this is the way it's supposed to be. I know this is what's going to happen. I know this. I know that. I know that. Or if God's so good, why did he? Why did this have to happen? Why did this have to happen? Or sometimes we lean on science. We lean on people's opinions on how science says things are going to work. Well, for those people, I'll say that keeping in mind that God is a greater, way greater being than we could ever understand, he actually operates outside of time, which means even in our comprehension of what we believe, not using God for a second, but even in our comprehension of science, with their theories and what they believe on how things are supposed to work with evolution and trying to prove that the ark landed, in Turkey somewhere or whatever. Science itself, if you think about it, could have no bearing on faith. Number one, faith is based on complete faith without proof, even though we have a Bible. But if you think about it, science, because it's in our understanding, our reasoning, man's reasoning, it's so small in the grand scheme of things in heaven with God, that if you think about it, since we're so little, we couldn't understand anything God has in his plan, which is why we can't see ahead. We're so little that science would be less than a speck of dust in the understanding of creation, because we're just some people on a little planet and millions of planets in the world created by God. And we came up with this thing called science, that we're trying to prove things that have to do with the divine, with God's divine creation. How in the world can we try to figure out how science, or how can we in our comprehension, which is so small compared to God, try to come up with any reasoning for anything he's done? My point here being, there is no way that our little brains in the scheme of everything in heaven could figure it out. So, I mean, faith is faith. With faith, you cannot, I mean, science is good and fine and dandy, but with faith, this is just my opinion based on how I feel when in my faith. But with faith, it's the complete lack of science. To me, it has nothing to do with science. Yeah, we figure out things about this and that, and time frames of different stuff. But I mean, this is the fact of the matter is, God created all of this. It's so far out of our realm of comprehension to even think that we have a grasp on facts from God's creations. It's insane. He's far bigger than even a word we could come up with. We're so small and so irrelevant. People, we're self-empowering. We like to put ourselves in these pedestals and put ourselves in these places where we feel like we know something. The only one, the only being, the only thing that knows anything is God. He's our creator. I mean, you can look all day long, all week long, all year long, and try to figure out something in a book besides the one book. God's the answer to everything. I mean, it's beyond human imagination. I try to look at a good deed, kind of unrelated to this video, but if you look at, today I was at the Lifeway bookstore getting a Bible, and the Bible I ordered, it came in, it was like $80, $90. I'm like, man, I don't have that much. I can't afford that right now. But I saw it, and I knew it was the Bible. I knew it was the Bible I went there to get. And when I went to pay for it, some lady behind the counter handed something to the guy who was checking me out, and he says, yeah, that some lady that just left told me to give this $100 to you for your purchase. That's beyond my understanding and in a worldly nature. But because I know how God works, I wasn't surprised. And it doesn't matter about money, who hands down money to who. If you give somebody a $20 bill to buy something and they give that same 20 to somebody else and they give that same 20 to somebody else, a lot of times the point is missed behind that. It's not what they got with it. It's not, man, you gave away the 20 they gave you. You should have used it and, enjoyed it. Well, I did enjoy it. You hand it to the next person, they hand it to the next person. What's happened, it's not about the money. What's happened is the transfer of goodness. It's the transfer of the spiritual torch that makes that person go, wow, that was nice. It was the human interaction. I call it the spiritual torch. That's my words. You can take $20, or in this case, $100, and pass that around the world one at a time, and you can have the next person pass it on. You've caused good. They've caused good. And can you imagine the infection, like a virus of goodness around the world, that $20 could do? It just makes you think. Remember, guys, anything bad that happens to you, there's always good. God has a reason for everything that you don't understand. I see it as anything that happens bad, that's your spiritual testimony. Without that testimony, without those things that you have to talk about, without those experiences, good and bad, then what do you go to battle with? What do you talk about? Somebody might hear your story. You had a drug problem, and you suffered. You went to prison. You spent most of your life, paying off debts, whatever it was. Someone's going to hear that somewhere. That's going to make them think. It's going to somehow apply to their life, and it's going to help someone along the way. So I promise you, all those things you've dealt with, those are spiritual testimonies. Those are things that God needs us. He needs us to use those to go to battle. And so I'd say this video is about, if you know something is wrong, if the piece doesn't fit, if something's too much of a struggle and you knew it was from day one, if it's too much to do a simple thing, it's probably the wrong thing. Probably. Every time. I would say every time. I hope that helps you. Think about that last statement. Just want you guys to know that I love you, and I say that because I mean it, and God loves you every day. He never leaves our side. God bless you guys, and I hope you have a good weekend. See you.